This is Josh Goforth, storyteller, musician, and producer. Got that right. And he's not just an ordinary all three of those things. What I read off his website, Josh, was you have performed in all 50 states, like 3 other continents, on the stage of the Grand Ole Opry, Lincoln Center, Carnegie Hall, and at the Earl Scruggs Music Festival.
That's correct.
But right now, you're in Jonesboro, Tennessee for the National Storytelling Festival.
Absolutely.
And you are apparently a regular here, and everybody knows
Thankfully, I'm a regular here.
And so you are from Marshall in Madison County, North Carolina. People that don't know that, that's one of the cities or towns in this state that got slammed, nearly devastated by Hurricane Helene.
Yes.
Just over a year ago. And I know you were instrumental there in starting some sort of jam at the old depot.
Yeah, actually, I was fortunate because in high school, middle school and high school, I used to ride the school bus down to Adams Drug Store on the bypass in Marshall, and there was a jam there every Thursday. Well, Jerry Adams, the pharmacist, was a great banjo player and sort of took me under his wing. And the town was wanting to renovate the depot. And Jerry and I thought it'd be a perfect opportunity to have a venue for music. And so every Friday night we'd have local musicians come down and perform at the depot, which was still going on all the way up until Hurricane Helene, and tragically the depot is now gone.
Completely gone.
Completely gone, yeah.
So is there a way to do the same thing, going in another building or something?
I think what's going to happen is Marshall is slowly rebuilding. You know, they've got, of course, the road fixed through town. A lot of the businesses are opening back up. So I think there'll definitely be opportunities for venues to present themselves for music. So,
how did you go from being, of course, a performer, growing up, and I saw you went to East Tennessee State University, and actually have a program there in storytelling, I saw. But how did you all of a sudden go from musician to storyteller, or were you always telling stories in school?
Well, it's really interesting because when I was a kid, there wasn't YouTube,
right,
where you could instantly learn a tune from folks all around the world. You had to actually go to people's houses and you had to sit with them and sit on their front porch. And it's funny because when I was a kid, I'd go to some of these older folks' front porch and I'd want them to play the tune, so I could learn it, and they'd play the tune, and then they'd just sit around and talk for like 20 minutes. And I'd be like, just quit talking and play the tune, play another tune. And, I was so eat up with the music bug. I mean, I wanted to know everything about music. I was interested not just in old time and bluegrass, I was interested in jazz and classical and rock and roll. From middle school, really, is where I caught the bug. Probably, I got my first guitar when I was 10 or 11 from my great uncle, and he showed me a few chords, and I just never stopped, practically slept with the thing. I mean, I would practice from the time I got home from school till the time I went to sleep. And so I was eat up with a music bug, and I started playing in bands. I went to East Tennessee State University, and when I first got into college, I actually got a call from a guy who was a hero of mine, David Holt from Asheville.
I've met him.
David, is one of our most treasured folklorists, musicians, storytellers, and he really has spent his lifetime in documenting this music and learning this music. And so David, actually, I met him in middle school. It was one of my first shows. He came to my middle school to perform. And then when I got out of high school, he called me and said he was forming a band to go to Europe. So from that time on, David Holt and I performed together, first as a band and then as a duet act for 20 years until David's retirement in 2020. Now, David, of course, was one of the instrumental people in starting the National Storytelling Festival. He was here at the very beginning.
I didn't know that.
And so he was always encouraging me to, think about what I said before I played a song. And so I just started telling small snippets of stories from home. And he said, you really ought to just build that up a little bit. He said, and you really could start performing in the storytelling community. Well, I was able to get on a 12-minute slot here at Jonesboro probably 10 years ago. And the next week, my phone blew up with offers to come play storytelling festivals. And so I had to immediately work up all this material. And it's been a joy for me because the storytelling audience they're so appreciative of the stories, the music, everything. And I found that, for me, there's Bill Lepp.
I've seen him on posters and stuff.
I found for me, when I started doing this on stage solo, it all came back to that moment where I went to those old folks' porches and they played a tune and they sat around and talked for 20 minutes. And that became the way I performed. So it just was like being on the front porch. So
when you're talking and then playing, are you talking about the song or just things in the community? Or?
So, it's evolved. Most of the time when I tell a story, the culmination or the peak of the story usually leads me into a song. It could be about the subject material, it could be like if it's something historic, or it could be a tune that I learned from a character in our community and I tell a little story about that character and then play the tune. That's slowly evolved into a sort of a longer format where now I'm telling stories from my childhood that are more modern, not just mountain stories. I worked up about a 30-minute piece on movie musicals connected to my grandfather's shape note singing. And I'm now doing historic pieces, but they all usually lead into something musical.
You play 20 instruments at least. And apparently good at all of them. I saw you lug in 3, so you had a banjo,
guitar, and fiddle this weekend.
Are those your main instruments?
I would say, yeah, that the string instruments now have become my main instruments. My major in college was actually brass. It was actually euphonium.
I actually read that. Have you ever been to the Tuba Christmas down in Columbus, North Carolina?
Yes, I have.
You have, really?
I have, and a lot of the great tuba players, well, actually, my lessons instructor who played trombone and euphonium, a lot of them studied at Tennessee Tech. And at Tennessee Tech, that was some of the first tuba ensembles, so I've always been interested in that sort of music. And I've been interested in brass since I was in middle school when I started in middle school band. Now, I have to say this, I haven't played brass in probably 15, 20 years, so I've definitely lost my chops. It would take a lot to get them back.
But you have everything else to fall back on.
Yes.
So what are some of the other instruments? I'm just curious.
So I had to learn, of course, all of the band instruments through my major in college because I was a music education major. So I had to learn all those instruments. But I started on piano when I was 4, became,
Seems to be a common theme, that or violin.
Yeah, never had lessons, but I grew up singing in church and hearing church music, so it was natural for me to just start to play the piano when I was 4 or 5 years old, started playing in church. And then again, when I was 10 or 11, my great uncle gave me a guitar, and that really changed my world. I learned the guitar, started going to jam sessions where I saw other instruments being played, like the banjo, the fiddle, the mandolin, the bass. And these jam sessions, usually there'd be spare instruments lining the walls and you could go pick one down, and I would just sit on the edge of the circle and watch people, and that's the way I learned to play. Never had lessons, did go to a few camps, and had a lot of wonderful mentors who shared their time with me, shared their knowledge with me, got to sit with them and have them give me tips and show me how to hold the thing or how to make certain chords. I was lucky to have grown up in Madison County because you about can't throw a rock without hitting somebody who can sing or play an instrument. So
it's a neat little town.
It is, yeah.
Going forward, you're here this year at the festival. Seems like you're here about every year doing something.
This year I'm actually one of the MCs. Usually they have me every other year as a featured teller.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I know, of course, you were at the Earl Scruggs Festival where I live at least the last 2 years, maybe all 4 of them.
I have been all 4.
Have you already signed up for next year yet? They won't
No,
release
they're not.
Release the
I don't think they're
yet.
booking quite yet.
Yeah, I'm trying to get a scoop
so.
on that.
Hopefully so.
So this evening, I know you're having a concert of some sort, or a show or something. You're practicing for one that's tomorrow?
Yeah, we're having a rehearsal actually. 3 of our wonderful storytellers, national storytelling artists, Kim Whitecamp, Bill Lepp, and Andy Irwin, are doing a show tomorrow night on Thursday, the 3 of them. They go by the name of the Uncalled For Trio, which I love that name. All really wonderful storytellers and humorists and musicians, Andy and Kim both play and sing, and Bill's just hilarious, wonderful storyteller. And so they're having me come just sort of be a side man on some songs.
Okay, I love that. Josh, thank you so much.
Thank you very much,
hope to
Mark. I
get to
appreciate
hear-
it.
Yeah, I hope to get to hear you at some point.
Absolutely.
I've heard you play music. You're amazing. And you led this whole 90-minute session of what? Healing the Hollers? What was that called?
Healing the Hollers, yeah.
And just what was that about, just very briefly?
Yeah, you know, we were trying to showcase the musicians from Western North Carolina who were affected by Helene. You know, I had friends who lost everything. Thankfully, I didn't lose where I lived, but I lost a lot of work.
Oh, I bet.
But you know, I was very fortunate. I had people I knew who lost their lives. So it was just a horrific event, really. And we're still rebuilding. It'll take years to get back. But what we wanted to do there was showcase the artists from Western North Carolina, their talent, and also a lot of original songs that people wrote because of Helene.
And there's a link to that. If I can find it, I'll paste.
Yeah, you can find it on YouTube.
Mm-hmm. Josh, again, thanks very much.
Thanks, Mark.
Good luck.
Thank you.
I'll look forward to seeing you down the road.
Thank you.
I'm out on the ocean, tossing to and fro. The lightning strikes the mainsail, angry waves take form, fighting through the dark gale on this sea of storms. So take my hand, show me where you want to go. Take my hand and tell me that you love me so. I've walked in the highways, run through city lights, flown right over dark days, crawled in sunny nights, hung out with the wrong crowd, scoffed at all the saints, belted out my song loud, mocked what Van Gogh paints. So take my hand, show me where you want to go. Take my hand and tell me that you love me so. You were always shining from the rocky shore, strung out silver lining, moonlight on the floor. We won't count the hours, just enjoy the high, smiling mangoes flowers.